Disney charges over $800 a night for a hotel room with 2 queen beds, a mini fridge, and a view of a parking structure, and people book it months in advance. The story of how that became normal, and why it's slowly falling apart, is the story of the rise and fall of Disney's fake luxury resorts. Walt's original vision for the hotels. Walt Disney's concept for Walt Disney World was never just a theme park. It was a complete, self-contained resort where guests would arrive, check in, and never have to leave Disney property for the duration of their vacation. That vision came directly from what he'd watched happen around Disneyland in Anaheim. Independent hotels, motels, restaurants, and souvenir shops had sprung up on the surrounding land he didn't own, capturing money from his visitors that he couldn't touch. Walt wanted the Florida project to capture everything: the parks, the hotels, the restaurants, the transportation, the recreation, all of it inside the fence. When Walt Disney World opened on October 1st, 1971, it opened with just 2 resort hotels, the Contemporary Resort and the Polynesian Village Resort. Both were built using a then experimental modular construction method where hotel room modules were assembled off-site and then inserted into the building structure during construction. The Contemporary's dramatic A-frame design was meant to echo the futurism of Tomorrowland. The monorail literally passes through the middle of the building, which was one of the most audacious architectural gestures in theme park history and remains visually striking today, even though the futurism has aged into something more like retrofuturism. The Polynesian's lush tropical theming was meant to feel like Adventureland transplanted into a hotel, with fire torches, tropical plants, and thatched architectural elements throughout the property. The intent, from the beginning, was that the resort's hotels would function as extensions of the theme park's storytelling rather than separate, disconnected accommodations where you happen to be sleeping before going to a park. Walt envisioned guests whose immersion in the Disney experience would begin the moment they checked in and wouldn't break until they left the property. That concept, the hotel as part of the narrative, would drive Disney's resort development for the next 5 decades. It would also become the central justification for pricing that eventually began testing even the most devoted guests' willingness to keep paying. Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground opened alongside the 2 hotels in 1971, rounding out the initial offering with a more budget-accessible option. But the hotel concept was always the centerpiece. Roy Disney, who had spent the final years of his life overseeing the completion of Walt's vision, understood that the resort hotels were as important to the overall concept as the parks themselves. The Eisner era and the resort building boom. Disney World opened with 2 hotels and a campground. For 17 years, that was essentially it. Michael Eisner arrived as CEO in 1984 and changed that trajectory dramatically. Eisner understood that hotel rooms were an extraordinary revenue source. Captive guests who had already traveled to Orlando and had no particular incentive to leave Disney property were, in business terms, an ideal customer. They ate at Disney restaurants, shopped at Disney stores, and rode Disney transportation because the alternative required renting a car and driving somewhere they weren't already paying to be. The Grand Floridian Beach Resort opened on June 28, 1988, as the 3rd resort hotel at Walt Disney World. It occupied land that had originally been earmarked for a Thai-inspired Asian resort during the original 1960s master plan. That plot had sat empty for nearly 17 years, while Disney worked out its long-term development priorities. The Grand Floridian was designed around the Victorian-era beach resorts that had once lined Florida's east coast, drawing specific architectural inspiration from the Hotel del Coronado in California and the Mount Washington Resort in New Hampshire. The lobby featured marble floors, stained glass domes, chandeliers, and a Victorian cage elevator. Then CEO Michael Eisner was present for the opening ribbon cutting alongside actor Burt Reynolds, and about 4,000 members of the press attended. The Grand Floridian set a template for what a Disney resort could be when money wasn't a primary constraint: immersive theming, dining that stood independently as a destination, and a level of physical detail that made the hotel feel like it belonged inside the parks, rather than merely adjacent to them. Victoria and Albert's, the fine dining restaurant inside the Grand Floridian, has won the AAA 5 Diamond Award every year since 2000, which is a legitimate culinary achievement that exists in genuine, sometimes amusing contrast to the corn dog situation 2 miles away in Magic Kingdom. What followed the Grand Floridian's opening was a sustained construction boom throughout the 1990s. Disney's Yacht Club and Beach Club opened in 1990, sharing the elaborate Stormalong Bay pool and situated walking distance from Epcot and Hollywood Studios. Disney's Boardwalk Resort opened in 1996, evoking a turn-of-the-century Atlantic City boardwalk and adding entertainment and dining along a lakeside promenade. Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge opened in 2001, with its genuine savanna visible from room balconies and its genuinely spectacular African-influenced architecture and art collection. Each new property attempted to deliver on the original promise of the immersive resort concept, and several of them did it exceptionally well. Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort, which had actually opened in 1988 as Disney's first moderate-tier hotel, established the three-tier system that still defines the resort's hotel structure today. The addition of that moderate tier was itself a significant strategic decision. It gave Disney a way to capture guests who couldn't afford deluxe rates but weren't satisfied with value accommodations, broadening the addressable market for on-property stays while maintaining the pricing architecture that made the whole system financially worthwhile. By the late 1990s, Disney was operating over a dozen hotels on property and had created a resort infrastructure large enough to occupy a family for an entire week without them ever needing to interact with anything that wasn't Disney. The three-tier system and what it actually means. The value, moderate, and deluxe tier system is how Disney organizes its roughly 30 hotels on property, and understanding the real differences between them is the most direct route to understanding why so many guests feel they've been sold something that didn't quite match the packaging. The value resorts, the three all-star resorts, Pop Century and Art of Animation, are Disney's budget tier. They're built around enormous exterior theming, giant sports equipment, giant musical instruments, giant movie characters, all scaled to create visual impact from a distance and keep children entertained while walking between the food court and the room. The exterior theming at Art of Animation, for example, is genuinely spectacular. Massive sculptures from Cars, Finding Nemo, The Lion King, and The Little Mermaid dominate every sightline in a way that makes the experience of walking through the grounds feel legitimately park-like. Inside the rooms themselves, the theming is minimal. The rooms are small, averaging around 260 square feet for a standard room, which is compact enough to feel crowded with 4 people by day 3. The amenities are basic. One food court, one shop, bus transportation only. They're adequate places to sleep between park days, and at off-peak pricing, they represent genuine value within the Disney system. The moderate resorts, Caribbean Beach, Port Orleans French Quarter and Riverside, Coronado Springs, step up the grounds, theming, and amenities considerably. The rooms are larger, the pools are more elaborate, there are table service dining options. The properties feel genuinely resort-like in a way the values don't, with pathways, waterways, and landscaping that make the grounds worth exploring. The price premium over value is real and consistent. Whether the upgrade justifies itself depends almost entirely on how much time you actually plan to spend at the hotel versus in the parks. The deluxe resorts are where the pricing becomes philosophically interesting and, for an increasing number of guests, philosophically difficult to accept. Standard rooms at deluxe properties start around $400 to $500 per night during off-peak periods and climb well past $800 and in some cases past $1,000 during peak seasons. The Grand Floridian, Disney's flagship, currently lists standard resort view rooms starting at around $807 per night. Premium theme park view rooms at the Contemporary, with direct visual access to Magic Kingdom, have been listed above $1,100 per night during holiday periods. That's where the gap between the concept and the reality becomes visible. A standard room at the Grand Floridian is approximately 450 square feet with 2 queen beds, a dresser, a nightstand, a flat-screen television, a mini fridge, a coffee maker, and a hairdryer. That is a comfortable, well-kept hotel room. It is not an $800 per night hotel room, by the standard of what $800 per night purchases at a genuine 5-star property anywhere else in the hospitality industry. A 4-night stay in a standard Grand Floridian room at peak pricing costs roughly $3,200 to $4,000 before taxes, before a single park ticket, before a single meal, before parking. For a family of 4, the hotel cost alone for a week at Disney's supposed flagship luxury resort regularly exceeds $5,000. One guest who had been visiting Disney World since the 1990s and had stayed at the Grand Floridian multiple times, put it bluntly in a recent review. The lobby was still as beautiful as ever, and that was the problem. All the money the hotel cost felt like it was in the lobby rather than in the actual room where they were sleeping. What you're actually paying for. Disney's argument for the premium, and it's not entirely without merit, is that the price of a Disney resort room includes things that the price of a comparable off-property hotel room doesn't. Free transportation to all 4 parks and Disney Springs, running essentially all day and into the night. Early entry into the parks, which gives on-site guests 30 minutes in the parks before official opening time, and represents a genuine, quantifiable advantage on crowd management. Particularly useful for families who want to hit the most popular attractions before the general public arrives. The idea that you never have to break the Disney experience from the moment you arrive to the moment you depart. For decades, the on-site benefit package was substantial enough to provide genuine justification for the premium. Disney's Magical Express, a free bus service that transported guests from Orlando International Airport directly to their Disney resort hotels and handled their checked luggage separately through baggage delivery, eliminated one of the primary logistical inconveniences of an Orlando vacation. Guests could walk off the plane with their carry-ons, board the bus, and arrive at their hotel without ever thinking about their bags again until they appeared in their room later that day. For families traveling with children, that service was worth real money in stress reduction alone. Free magic bands, the radio frequency wristbands that served simultaneously as room keys, park tickets, and payment devices, added a level of friction-free convenience that off-property hotels genuinely couldn't match. Extra magic hours gave on-site guests access to the parks before or after regular operating hours, a perk that experienced visitors planned their entire multi-day touring strategies around, routing high-demand attractions into the exclusive access windows to minimize waits during regular operating hours. Then, between 2021 and 2022, Disney removed most of those benefits. Magical Express was discontinued in January 2022. Magic bands went from complimentary to purchased. Extra magic hours were restructured into extended evening hours, available only to deluxe and DVC guests during select evenings, significantly reducing the breadth of the on-site benefit that had once applied across all tiers. Genie Plus and Lightning Lane replaced the free FastPass system with paid options, $25 to $30 per person per day for Genie Plus at Walt Disney World, on top of already expensive hotel and ticket costs, eliminating another perk that had previously been available to all on-site guests simply by virtue of staying on property. The price of the hotels did not go down to reflect the reduced benefit package. It went up, as Disney pricing reliably tends to do, regardless of external circumstances. Between 2019 and 2023, average nightly rates at Disney's deluxe resorts increased by somewhere in the range of 30 to 40%, depending on the property and season. The same guest who could justify the Grand Floridian's rate in 2018 by adding up free Magical Express, free Magic Bands, free FastPass, and extra magic hours was now being asked to pay more for fewer of those benefits. The math changed. Not every guest noticed immediately, but it's been noticed. The Grand Floridian problem. The Grand Floridian has become a specific flashpoint for the broader guest frustration with Disney resort pricing, and the criticism comes from an unexpected direction. It's not just that guests think it's too expensive, it's that guests who pay the highest rates increasingly say the hotel no longer feels like a Disney hotel. Recent reviews have noted that the Grand Floridian's rooms, despite ongoing refurbishments, feel generic, well-appointed and comfortable, but lacking the specific, immersive Disney character that justifies paying Disney prices rather than Marriott or Hyatt prices. One reviewer described the atmosphere as elegant yet detached, noting that the lobby was undeniably beautiful, but that nothing about the room itself communicated Disney storytelling. Another described it plainly as pretty boring, especially compared to the more thematically specific resorts like Animal Kingdom Lodge or Wilderness Lodge. A guest quoted in a 2025 coverage piece summed it up this way: "The Grand Floridian feels like it could belong anywhere," which is precisely the problem when you're paying Disney prices to be somewhere specific. This matters because the entire premise of paying Disney resort prices rather than comparable prices at off-property luxury hotels rests on the immersion proposition. If you're not getting something specifically Disney, something that couldn't exist at a Marriott Marquis or a Hilton, then you're paying the Disney premium for a hotel experience you could have gotten at less cost somewhere else. The Four Seasons Resort Orlando at Walt Disney World Resort, which shares the Disney property, has consistently received higher luxury hotel ratings than the Grand Floridian at comparable or only slightly higher nightly rates, which is not the kind of comparison Disney benefits from guests making. The Grand Floridian's recent conversion of a significant portion of its hotel rooms to Disney Vacation Club timeshare units compounds this. The Big Pine Key building was converted from hotel rooms to DVC Resort Studios in 2022, removing inventory from the standard hotel booking pool and shifting it into the timeshare system. This benefits Disney's revenue. It's less obviously good for guests trying to book a standard hotel stay at Disney's flagship property and finding fewer available rooms. The resorts that actually work. The honest critique of Disney's resort pricing model is not that no on-property hotel justifies its price. Some of them demonstrably do. Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, which opened in 2001, is genuinely extraordinary by the standard of any hotel anywhere. The building's design, inspired by African lodge architecture, wraps around a 33-acre savanna populated with real African wildlife. Zebras, giraffes, wildebeest, and various bird species. Standard rooms have private balconies overlooking the savanna. Guests wake up to giraffes standing outside their window, which is an experience that literally no off-property hotel in Orlando offers at any price. The restaurant Jiko and the counter service Boma serve genuinely distinctive African-influenced menus that stand on their own as dining destinations. Animal Kingdom Lodge is the clearest example of Disney's immersive resort concept working precisely as it was designed to work. Disney's Wilderness Lodge, with its giant Pacific Northwest Lodge architecture and its own geyser that erupts at intervals, is another property that delivers an experience genuinely specific to Disney and unavailable elsewhere. The beach club's massive Stormalong Bay pool, 750,000 gallons, a sandy-bottomed lazy river, a 150-foot water slide built into a shipwreck, hot tubs, and private beach, is one of the best hotel pool complexes in Orlando by any objective standard, and access to it is what a significant portion of the beach club's premium actually buys. The argument against the deluxe tier pricing isn't that all of it is unjustified, it's that the category is inconsistent. Properties like Animal Kingdom Lodge and the Wilderness Lodge deliver experiences proportionate to their cost, while others deliver well-appointed hotel rooms at prices that reflect the Disney brand tax more than any specifically Disney experience. The post-pandemic reckoning. The accumulated changes of the 2020 to 2022 period, the pandemic closure, the removal of Magical Express, the shift to paid Genie Plus, the loss of free Magic Bands, the pricing increases that continued regardless of what was happening operationally, collectively changed the calculus of a Disney resort stay in ways that have pushed a meaningful portion of loyal, repeat guests into a different category of thinking about what they're actually getting. It wasn't just that things got more expensive. Prices at theme parks and hotels go up every year, and Disney's audience has historically absorbed those increases with varying levels of complaint, but ultimately continued booking. What shifted in 2021 and 2022 was the perception that Disney was reducing the value of the on-site experience at the same time it was raising prices for it. A double movement that crossed a line in ways that single price increases alone hadn't. The specific loss of Magical Express stings in a way that's disproportionate to its practical cost. Mears Connect, the service that replaced it, charges approximately $16 per person each way, meaning a family of 4 pays roughly $128 round trip for airport to hotel transportation that used to be free. That's not a financially ruinous amount, but it was one of the most genuinely luxurious things about a Disney resort stay. The bag service, the seamless transition from plane to vacation, the specificity of the Disney experience starting at the airport, and its removal felt, to many longtime guests, like Disney deciding that the logistics of their comfort mattered less than the cost savings of eliminating the service. The off-property hotel market around Walt Disney World has also improved significantly. Universal Orlando's Epic Universe opened in 2025, dramatically expanding the footprint of Disney's primary competitor in the Orlando market and giving families planning multi-day trips more meaningful choices about how to allocate their time and budget. Hotels on International Drive and in the broader Kissimmee corridor have continued upgrading their facilities, and services like Uber and Lyft have made the transportation argument for staying on Disney property considerably less decisive than it was when renting a car was the main alternative. What this has created is a segment of Disney's own core audience, families who've been visiting for 10, 15, 20 years, who genuinely love the parks and the experience, who have started doing the math in a way they didn't used to. Not simply, can we afford this, but are we actually getting what we're paying for compared to what we could get elsewhere for the same money? For the first time in a long while, that question has a complicated answer at the deluxe tier price points. Disney's response has been to offer periodic discount programs of up to 30% on resort rooms during certain booking windows, which is both a useful promotional tool and, when you look at it directly, an acknowledgement that the published rates weren't finding buyers in sufficient numbers at their stated values. A hotel that routinely discounts by 30% is either overpriced at the published rate, discounting as a strategic demand management tool, or both. In Disney's case, it's probably both. The parks are still full, the hotels are still booking, the system hasn't broken, but the conversation in the Disney fan community, among travel agents who specialize in Disney trips, and in the broader media coverage of the resort has shifted from how to maximize a Disney vacation to whether a Disney vacation, specifically at the resort hotel level, still makes financial sense relative to the alternatives. What Disney built and what it's becoming. The original concept, a self-contained vacation kingdom where the hotels were as immersive as the parks, where you never needed to leave the Disney bubble, and where the premium you paid bought a genuinely differentiated experience, was legitimately visionary when Walt conceived it and legitimately executed at its best by Eisner's building boom in the late 1980s and 1990s. The Polynesian, the Wilderness Lodge, Animal Kingdom Lodge, the Boardwalk. These properties achieved something real. They made the hotel stay feel continuous with the park experience rather than a logistical interruption between park days. That was the promise, and at its best it was delivered. The version that's emerged from the post-pandemic pricing model is something different. It's a system where the published rate for Disney's flagship resort exceeds that of the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons, both of which are available in Orlando, where the benefit package that once justified the premium has been systematically reduced, and where some of the most consistent feedback from guests at the most expensive properties is that the experience doesn't feel specifically or meaningfully Disney anymore. The hotels that still work, the ones that deliver something actually proportionate to their cost, tend to be the ones where the immersive concept was most completely realized from the beginning. Animal Kingdom Lodge, Wilderness Lodge, the Beach Club with its extraordinary Stormalong Bay pool. These properties are holding up precisely because they offer something that genuinely can't be replicated by booking an off-property hotel and taking an Uber to the parks. The ones that are struggling are the ones that relied on the Disney premium as its own justification, the assumption that guests would pay the extra cost simply to be inside the Disney brand experience, regardless of whether that experience was delivering anything specifically Disney in the room where they actually slept. Whether Disney adjusts pricing downward to match the current benefit package, improves the benefit package to match the current pricing, or simply continues relying on brand loyalty and the irreplaceable proximity to the parks to keep the rooms full is genuinely uncertain. The resort hotels are still full most of the time. The Grand Floridian is still booking out months in advance. But the conversation has shifted in a way that would have been nearly impossible to imagine a decade ago. From, how do we afford to stay on property? To, is staying on property actually worth it anymore? That's a different question, and the fact that it's being asked at all by people who've been coming back for years is the most significant thing happening to Disney's resort business right now. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more fascinating stories.